It's the Exit 52 podcast. It's really more of a little mini live stream here on Sunday night, November 26, 2023. My name's Jake Luke, and I'm joined by a very thankful Spencer Nathaniel Schultz. How you doing, pal?
Doing quite well. We've had a full, exciting plate of fun games today. A couple games that had some pretty big impact on the Ravens and the AFC playoff picture. One of them going on right now as Jake Elliott bangs a 59-yarder that he snuck in there, crossbar to crossbar, right over, able to sneak that in and send this Eagles-Bills game in Philly in the downpour to overtime. Josh Allen has a massive interception, comes back, scores a touchdown. So we've have a fun one. We got Beat Gamer here. 1 p.m. slate was an Eat Your Veggies slate. I agree with that to an extent for sure. We see the Browns fall to the Denver Broncos, who really ran train on Dorian Thompson-Robinson, knock him out of the game. PJ Walker gets banged up. Amari Cooper gets banged up. And the Broncos are the hottest team in the NFL. If you think that means by win streak, then your Denver Broncos are the hottest right now. Kansas City Chiefs get it done against the Las Vegas Raiders. And Pittsburgh Steelers handle business against Jake Browning and maybe the easiest under to ever possibly place a wager on. Jake Browning in the rain against the pity Pittsburgh Steelers, who continue to claw and scratch against backup quarterbacks and fight their way into the playoff picture there. So as things stand, the Ravens have the opportunity again to go win, move to 9-3, and still sit in the driver's seat in the AFC. Technically, things won't shake out that way. Ultimately, if the Chiefs were to win out, so on and so forth. But Ravens are in a good spot. They have an interesting game, an interesting opponent. And Sunday Night Football, I think NBC has the best production. And I don't mean Chris Collinsworth necessarily and Tirico. I do like them. That's subjective. I just think, and this is subjective too, but I just think the graphics package, the production value, everything that NBC does is number one in all of football right now.
Yeah, it feels the most professional to me. It feels kind of the most buttoned up and treating it like a big event. Whereas with ESPN, they kind of make it feel like a novelty at times. Like we're going to do Hank Williams Jr. and Toy Story and all this kind of shit that they do, which, some of it hits for me. But yeah, I agree. I agree with that. NBC, they're kind of their crew that they got there, the full crew. You got the Clapper, you got Coach. Maria Taylor's been like an interesting fit. Like, it's a little bit with the studio stuff. And then you got Florio kind of, on the outskirts of the crew there as well, offering up some interesting things here and there. It's kind of, that's definitely pretty hit or miss for me, but I do like Mike and Chris. Nothing could replace Al and Chris in their heyday for me. I think they were kind of personally always going to be favorites of mine, but obviously Al is on his way out now. And I've always loved Mike in different capacities, so I'm sure they'll grow on me, but yeah, NBC, I think Sunday Night Football is really the biggest it gets as far as the primetime options that you have on tap. And so here the Ravens are traveling to the Southwest here, to the West Coast, to La La Land, take on a Chargers team that is teetering. We don't have to go like super in-depth X's and O's, break this thing down from a preview perspective, but we did want to get something up here just so we can get our predictions down on record and talk about the game a little bit as we head between the coverage gap here. From the 4 p.m. slate into the game itself. So waiting all day for Sunday night, as Joe DeMartin says here in the comments. How are we feeling about this one? Just from a 30,000-foot view.
Definitely a game where you see a team like the Bills right now that is still undergoing teetering. The Chargers are on the lower end of teetering. The Bills are on the higher end. And what I mean by that is the Bills already fired someone. The Bills already made a move. The Bills really can't afford to lose many more games. The Dolphins continue to surge forward. Losing this game for the Bills is huge. This is a fall off the cliff game for the Chargers. They have to win this game. Brandon Staley has to win this game. The pressure of his post-game comments, him saying like, quit asking, I'm calling the plays. Don't ask me that again. You can just feel the tension in that man's shoulders. That man needs a Johnny Drama masseuse out there in Las Vegas to go loosen him up a little bit. And Brandon Staley, I think, gets fired if the Chargers lose. I don't think it would be surprising. With that, you expect the Chargers to be composed. They've been in this spot, and they're just not. So with this game, the things that I know are that the Ravens perform on primetime, that Lamar Jackson lights it up in primetime. I know that the Chargers, when they need to get it together, fail to. And since that massive collapse in the playoffs, that huge blown lead against the Jaguars, the Chargers, that's a crippling loss as a young head coach in an organization that's kind of the second fiddle and is a guest in SoFi in many respects. So, man, we've, not to get to predictions too early, but we've watched this Ravens team disassemble and dismantle teams like the Detroit Lions, the Seattle Seahawks. Their divisional opponents have played them pretty tough. That comes with the territory, I feel like. And not to mention the last time these two teams played, hey, it was a different offensive coordinator for the Chargers, but the Ravens ran all over Brandon Staley's defense, and his defense stinks. If you want to go look at, advanced metrics, they're like 31st in EPA per play allowed. They're 30th in success rate allowed per drop back. Their run defense is very middle of the pack. They don't have Joey Bosa. So I expect this Ravens team to run all over them. That's what I have seen. And to quote Nick Saban, the best indicator of future success is previous behavior. So what have you told me? You've told me that the Chargers can't get it together and that the Ravens will run all over this team. So that's where my head goes when I go to this game.
Yeah, shout out to Nick with the horseshoe up his ass the other night there in the Iron Bowl. What a fucking game that was, with Milroe connecting with Isaiah Bond. So got to shout that out if you're going to bring Nick up, of course. But that was awesome. And yeah, I just tend to agree. These are two teams, I think, heading in very different directions. And you can definitely make the case for trap game this or whatever that for the Ravens, but they're sitting there at 8-3. They should feel pretty comfortable. 3 losses, I think 2 of which you shoot yourself in the foot for. And then I think the third of which was just kind of a hard fought game against a very good team in the Browns, who they fall to 7-4, but they're a legit outfit. And they still had Deshaun Watson at the time. And he was really kind of just meeting his peak. So it was really tough to see a guy like that, one of the good guys in this game, just kind of fall off the mountain, as it looked like he was starting to ascend it a little bit. But yeah, man, there's been a stink on this Chargers organization for a very long time. And for me, man, it just starts at the top with Dean Spanos. Like, it is not talked enough about how bad of an owner this guy and his cabal of people around him are. Moving them out of San Diego, just letting Qualcomm Stadium rust, moving them out of San Diego ultimately to play second fiddle to the Rams. Like you said, the vibes have just been terrible. And I don't know. I kind of feel for Justin Herbert, who's just been put into this he kind of reminds me of Lamar Jackson a little bit, the way people talk about him in these polarizing ends, where it just feels like, to me, he's just a very good young quarterback who just keeps his mouth shut and goes about his business and tries to do the right thing. And, whether he is a little overrated, maybe, whether his defense and, a little bit of a supporting cast issues around him kind of let him down from time to time. I definitely think that's true as well. And he's just caught up in this whirling dervish, shitstorm, where what are they sitting at 4-7 right now? Like you said, this is kind of make or break time for them. And, when you're saying that with 5 games or whatever there are left in the season, pretty bad spot to be in. So like I said, 2 teams just going in very opposite directions. And I don't know, an interesting dynamic when you talk about 2 young quarterbacks that I think are among the best in the league right now. And it says a lot about what supporting cast and what a good organization can do for you versus a bad one and a bad one, respectively.
Definitely. And Herbert's been strong. I like that comparison. I think those are 2 players that have a similar national narrative, I think is the best way to put it. And the help around them has been injured and in flux a lot. The Ravens won't have Marlon Humphrey in this one. Keenan Allen entered week 12, leading the NFL in receptions with 83 and targets with 113. So you expect to see a lot of Brandon Stevens in this game, who's had such a strong season and been such a linchpin out of nowhere for a Ravens team that desperately needed him to. We will see Odell Beckham and Ronnie Stanley in this game. Zay Flowers also good to go. Charlie Kohler good to go. Rashad Bateman good to go. So the horses are there for the most part, aside from Humphrey. And it feels like this defense isn't as dependent on Humphrey as it has been in years past. He feels like a little tiny bit more of a luxury than he is a necessity. But luxuries are needed to go win a Super Bowl, things like that. So I don't think that's a debilitating loss for the Ravens. When you go look at this Chargers offense, where's the juice, man? Where's the freaking juice? Keenan Allen's a very good older possession receiver who can make plays, does make plays, is a tough cookie, is Herbert's guy. I like Austin Eckler as a fantasy player and a personality. He's not a guy that kills people on the ground, especially a team like the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens do have a long week of rest as well, which I think was pivotal in this game. The Ravens typically, I believe under Harbaugh, I don't have the perfect record in front of me. Last year, they were able to pull it off, but typically lose before the bye and then win after the bye. I know that they got throttled by the Bengals a couple years ago before the bye, and they go handle business after it. Last year, they had 2 kind of soft opponents, were able to take care of business. But with that extra rest and preparation, going into the bye 9-3, man, that you can't really ask for much better in a pretty what was regarded as loaded AFC that has a lot of quarterback value in it. While a couple of those guys, the Ravens, have knocked out of the race a little bit here, who we see fall apart at the seams in Deshaun Watson's Browns and Joe Burrow's Bengals, who both lost today. But I just don't know where Herbert's help is. There's not a guy that can take the load off. He has to be the playmaker all the time. It kind of reminds me of like some of the later Kobe Bryant basketball teams. He has to be the shot creator. He has to be the playmaker. He has to be the scorer. And, Eckler can diddle around on some screens. Keenan Allen gets open and helps him move the chains. But it feels like it has to be these very methodical, precise drives over and over again. And I think he has played really well. And when you go, that's where a PFF grade comes in handy, where it's like he is playing better than what the results are. That's where the objective versus the subjective, the box score watching, all of those things come in handy. Mike Williams out for the year, huge loss. And as this game stands, the Ravens are 3-point favorites. The odds there, 120 for the Ravens on FanDuel, minus 168 in the money line, and the over-under, the total, is 49. And that feels like a very trappy line to me. That feels like Vegas thinks they can get a lot of action on the Ravens, and maybe it's a close game. But again, it's like fool me once, fool me twice, fool me three times. I thought the Ravens would play the Lions close. I thought the the Seahawks would play the Ravens close. And now what I wrote down for Press Box Online in my picks was the Ravens run game completely overwhelmed Brandon Staley's defense in their last matchup. Staley is coaching for his job in front of a national audience and is showing signs of crumbling under pressure just as soon as last week. Herbert has little help in creating explosive plays against a Mike McDonald defense that limits them. And the only way the Chargers can win this game is if they can magically turn into the Browns defense against the run. And Herbert has a makeshift crew play 4 quarters of mistake-free football against a stout Ravens team in prime time. The Ravens won't lose by more than a field goal. Taking the money line is a fine play. I like Ravens alternate spread plus 3.5 and alternate total plus or over 44.5 as well.
There's just no home field advantage.
Just would have to be a clunker. Would have to be a clunker from the Ravens. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, and there's no home field advantage to account for. You're not going to have to worry about crowd noise. Like, there's probably going to be as many Ravens fans there as there are Chargers fans, and probably going to be as many people who are just want to check out an NFL game down there in SoCal as there are actual like diehard Chargers fans. Not many to really worry about.
It's the cheaper football game to go to at SoFi.
Yeah, and it's just a sterile environment, and like we said, they're just on the brink of desolation here. So yeah, it's a tough spot for them, but equally an important game for the Ravens, I think, because this is kind of the last one where you look at it and you say, yeah, they really should win that one, in my opinion. You got a tough one going to at Jacksonville. You got a tough one at San Francisco. I would say probably Steelers at home in the last week of the season, and we'll see what even happens with that. That kind of looks like the one that I would look at and say, okay, yeah, I definitely think they're going to win that. But like I said, Niners, Jags, Dolphins. I mean, they got some tough games still coming here on the docket. So this is one that I think there is some pressure to go out there and say, okay, like we got to get this one done so we can feel good going into that stretch. And obviously they still have the bye to go, so they'll have time to rest and get their head right no matter what happens. But I don't know. I just think that this is one that you're the Ravens. You've shown that you can take care of business against these teams for the most part this season. Just go ahead and do it again. And give yourself some cushion as you head into the bye. Give yourself some good vibes as you do so. Take that week off and then come back ready to fire against that gauntlet.
Certainly. And when you go try, what I usually try to go look at about opposing teams is, have they played a super mobile quarterback? Chargers did suppress, I believe, the Tyson Bagent. Yeah, the Tyson Bagent led Bears. So that one on paper you have to go check out. Like, okay, Justin Fields wasn't there. The Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, certainly a mobile quarterback, did have 4 touchdowns and 400 yards on them, ran for 29 yards on 4 carries. Then Jordan Love, able to move around. And these are not, Mahomes is his own beast in a different way than Jackson, but is super mobile. Love was able to do some things with his feet, buy some time, make some plays, things like that. So they just haven't seen the mobile quarterback aside from a Mahomes, and Mahomes had his way with them. So I think that always throws that monkey wrench in and gives a little bit of an advantage when that's not your cup of tea. Mahomes isn't a quarterback run game centric thing. It is in that world to some degree, but you go look at this Chargers defense, who is without Joey Bosa, and they do have a somewhat formidable pass rush. Khalil Mack having a really stout year, 47 pressures, 12 sacks, 5 quarterback hits. Thule Tupelotu out of USC, a big boy that can rush with power, has had 3 multi-sack games, only has 2 sacks over the last, I think, 7 games, but had a couple big pressure games in the last few, and we'll step into Joey Bosa's shoes here. You see a couple other guys that have generated some pressure in Morgan Fox, who plays a little bit of that 3-tech, a little bit of that nose tackle for them. Sebastian Joseph Day, who they signed away from the Rams a couple years ago, is a nice player and can do some things against the run. You expect him to make plays, and then their real shortcoming has just been their secondary. When you go look on their coverage players that play a ton of snaps, Asante Samuel has been quite disappointing. And hey, I don't even know if it's the talent. It very well may be that Brandon Staley was not, and will never be that guy. I think we may look back at the Brandon Staley tenure and say, how did that guy get a job? It feels like this marriage of everyone falling in love with Vic Fangio's 2 high shells and him coming from the right tree and being on the right teams a little bit and not being that prodigal son on the defensive side of the football that many thought he would be. You go talk about Michael Davis, Derwin James back there, of course. Alohi Gilman has filled in quite admirably and looks like a really nice player on the back end. But is not a athletic playmaker necessarily, more of just a sound tackling, sturdy presence a little bit. So corners aren't popping off the tape at you. Kenneth Murray in the middle there. Derwin James, of course, a really great player who feels like injuries have limited him in coverage a little bit. But hey, man, I just don't know a fired up Lamar Jackson that's having fun on primetime in a big city. We've seen this recipe. We really have. The only clunker that he's had in that situation is a Thursday night game against the Dolphins that was a boiling point for this Ravens franchise. It seems like they've gotten well past it. So in this game, I, again, just think the Ravens are going to be able to run all over them. We have a couple things props-wise. What do you see? Anything that sticks out to you, Jake? Anything that you want to tickle, wet your whistle on? Any action that you like in this game in any direction?
I'm interested here. You know, I love the QB rushing yards thing. I think Lamar Jackson, going back 6 games, has 50 plus in each of those as far as rushing yards go. So I'm wondering, is this kind of the trend breaker when you're on prime time and you've got a Stanley who's not quite as healthy, working his way back in the lineup? The pass catchers, they're, obviously a little bit of concern health-wise there, but everyone's going to play. So yeah, I think I would probably go with Lamar QB rushing over. Again, I'm not sure what even his line is. I forgot to check on DK here, but I think I will be sprinkling that a little bit.
He's somewhere in the low 40s, 40, 42 and a half.
Yeah, it's usually like 41, 42, and he's just been hitting it every single week. So yeah, I would definitely be looking at that, especially with the way this defense has been playing. Do you think Brandon Staley is like it wasn't all the way clear that NFTs were a joke, but like we were kind of getting there, and somebody there was some sucker that's like, man, I want to get in on that Bored Ape Yacht Club. I know it's going to be like $1.2 million, $1.3 million to, it's going to be a big investment, but like maybe there's still something here, and then they buy it. And just like, a couple months later, they've just lost their ass completely. And it's like, oh, wow. And it's like kind of the Sean McVay, like finding the next Sean McVay was just really like NFTs all along. And like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, that's, the Chargers getting Brandon Staley, whatever sorry sucker got in on that type of thing.
I do. I think that was a branch that was extended too far, and NFTs were a absolute correlation to that scenario of Brandon Staley seeming to be the new, modern, cutting edge, advanced, young, hip thing, and just didn't have the experience, wasn't ultimately the guy. And hey, to his defense, not an easy organization to establish a consistent winner when you have Patrick Mahomes in your division, especially. And the pressure that creates. It's
funny. I think he might get market corrected by Mike McDonald here.
Yes. McDonald is the East Coast version to the LA Staley. McDonald does not have the smile and the Chinese proverbs and the quips and the tech appeal of a Staley, but just quietly goes about his business and is at the cutting edge over here on the Best Coast, the Beast Coast.
Sorry to cut off the player props there. I had that thought as you were kind of talking for a while there, and I had to get it out. But going back to it, I mean, I just, for whatever reason, I'm liking Zay Flowers getting in the end zone tonight. That's plus 180.
I like that one a lot too.
So yeah, Lamar Jackson over rushing yards, which let's pull that up on DraftKings.
Red zone targets. When you think of red zone targets, Mark Andrews, the team leader, Odell Beckham, Zay Flowers, the other 2 guys. You think Isaiah likely gets a couple as well.
Yep.
While you're looking for that, the things that I absolutely love, Keith Mitchell
for Jackson rushing yards, 45 and a half.
45 and a half. I might look at longest rush for Jackson as well. I could see him rattling off a cool 25-yard or something like that tonight. Keaton Mitchell, 37.5 yards rushing. I am hammering that. Keaton Mitchell over 8.5 yards receiving. I think they like to get him screens. I think they like to split him out wide. I think his role continues to grow. He runs a lot of routes and he does not block very often. He has a high route participation rate, about as high as you'll see of a running back. Isaiah Likely over 2.5 receptions, I think is a little bit of a lock. I also really, really like the trifecta of Keaton Mitchell touchdown, Keaton Mitchell over receiving yards, Keaton Mitchell over rushing yards. As we see, I believe the Eagles driving, getting to the crux of this overtime session with the Bills.
I feel like the SpongeBob meme where the guy's like turned around, like looking at the next table, like when the fajitas come out sizzling and I'm looking behind,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to surface that meme.
I also really like Gus Edwards' 2+ touchdowns. He's hit that in 3 of his last 4 games. It is a long shot, so bear with that, but it's plus 700. And for someone Isaiah Pacheco had better odds, and maybe that's because the Chargers' pass defense sucks and their red zone defense is okay, and maybe their run defense is a lot more of a solid unit than their pass defense, but that's just worth a little sprinkle. I like a Gus Edwards anytime. I like a Gus Edwards 2-touchdown score, plus 700, somewhere around there. I alted Keaton Mitchell up to 50+ yards as well. I think you can really play with that and ladder that if you want. And I just see him being able to get going a little bit to the outside, attack those cornerbacks in the run game, and get moving and scooting.
Very nice. What else we got?
Jake's Marcus Williams tweets are incredible. They certainly are. I was enjoying that a ton. And he clearly is so obviously playing into the bit, which you just love to see.
Yeah, it's the best. Like the one-armed man, and he's walking in with the coat with the one arm kind of just dangling by its side. And I've just been I've been maybe even getting more enjoyment out of it than what I'm putting out on Twitter. But I think my brother and I were having a lot of fun with that on the Thanksgiving Eve, little drink session that we had. Just a lot of one-armed man jokes going around, going back to Curb Your Enthusiasm, then all the way to The Fugitive, maybe even a little Twin Peaks for all my weirdos.
Oh, Twin Peaks, yeah.
All my lynch heads. So yeah, he's the one-armed man, truly and officially, and like maybe he'll even start to look better, get some more range of motion, some usage of that, but he will forever be the one-armed man to me. So shout out to Marcus Williams. Hope he has a big night.
Certainly, and we see Malik Harrison is inactive, which tells me that the Ravens aren't too concerned. I have a concussion. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe he was banged up. I think he might have been banged up to some capacity. He is inactive, but could also be that Ravens aren't super worried about setting a hard edge against a Chargers team that just isn't dangerous ground and pound wise.
You got Josh Ross coming up, and I don't know if he's going to be active for this, right?
He is active. He's going to be taking a lot of special team snaps. I think he'll replace Trenton Simpson and some Malik Harrison. So I think we'll see him able to go see what he can do to full extent on special teams at least. Don't think he'll get on the field defensively, but you never know.
Absolutely. So that will be good to see.
Justin Herbert, the jump in terms of
37-34 Eagles.
There we go. Game over.
Yeah, big help for the Ravens there in the playoff race. Although the
Bills, as well as the Steelers, as well as the Browns, the Broncos there, very muddy. So the Eagles take down Josh Allen. The Eagles are just, getting it done. Really, really, really thoroughly getting it done. Without Lane Johnson, too. And, hey, they have like 5 other Hall of Fame players probably, but he's one too. And gritty performance, coming back, playing from behind, all those things people like to talk about.
Absolutely. All right, what else we got before we close this sucker out? Go watch the game.
Justin Herbert has been pushing the ball downfield a little bit more. Quentin Johnston has been terrible, has been dropping the ball. You hope this isn't a get-right game for him. Justin Herbert has thrown the ball deep, 20+ yards on 12.6% of his pass attempts in 2023 per PFF charting. 2022, that was under 10% at 9.8. Medium, aka intermediate, 10-19, was 17.1 in 2022, and that has jumped up to 18.2. So you see him throwing short and behind the line of scrimmage less than he did previously in this new Kellen Moore offense. Time to throw over 3 seconds, which is also a pretty interesting. Or no, pardon me, that was just on deep balls. That's not right. But I regret. Get back into it. They like to try to push the ball a little bit more, something that has taken a leap forward, more kind of over the middle of the field to the sideline, and he really can locate those balls around the numbers, outbreaking deeper stuff, some of the smash routes, some of the deep out, some of those things. So if the Chargers are to win this game, it's going to have to be a Justin Herbert masterclass of precision against the defense that disguises coverage, brings pressure, and is probably going to hit him a good bit. That should really be the key in this one. Rashawn Slater, the left tackle there, one of my favorite players in his class, had a really horrible injury last year. It looked so strong, is starting to get back into it, wins some, loses some a little bit, kind of like a Ronnie Stanley, kind of like that situation. Not as horrific of an injury as Ronnie Stanley's, not as long standing, but a really talented player that went super high, that was playing really high level football before being hurt. So he's going to have to show out in this one. And man, I think it just comes down to, is the Ravens defense scintillated? Are they cutting glass with their headlights? Are their nipples a little hard in this one for prime time in LA?
That's what you're asking.
Oh yeah. I want to go see particularly Patrick Queen and Roquan Smith, who entered this week playing the first and third most snaps of any linebackers. And I think they're in the top 10 both in defensive snaps overall. Linebackers a little more tiring, having to hit than DBs and stuff like that. But they looked gassed against the Bengals. They looked gassed a couple of times over the last couple of weeks, especially Patrick Queen. So they had a long week. You're going to get another one. You want to see those guys go balls to the wall tonight. I want to see more pre-snap communication, something that the Ravens did not have to an extent that makes you feel good about yourself in that Browns game, especially. It felt like they got sluggish pre-snap. They didn't have the communication on point. They weren't over-communicating. And that's something you really want to see to make sure that you're not giving Justin Herbert easy outs, that you're not giving them 5, 7, 10-yard gains on the ground to get started, get going, get points on the board. So I want to see this defense come out. I want to see everybody talking to start this game. It should be quiet relatively. You should be able to talk. You should be able to hear the Chargers offense. I think if we see those two linebackers, Kyle Hamilton has been playing like a demon, a bat out of hell. If we see the linebackers get back up after a little bit of rest to that level, and those three can go end plays, I think this one does get out of hand. And I'm going to think that they can play on that level. I think they know that. I think they're 1,000% conscious of it. I did have the Ravens winning a close one. I'm going to go with my gut instead of my brain here. Goldilocks. It feels like a Goldilocks. I saw the Lions and the Seahawks. I saw the differences in those teams and schematically and things of that nature. And I just didn't put the piece together confidently for the Ravens to go blow them out. And they did. So I'm going to say the Ravens win this one 33-16. I think it is close in the first half at some point. And I think we see the Ravens run game just start to dismantle the Chargers a little bit. I am looking to Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kohler to step up in the run game. Look at Josh Oliver, who made so much money this year because he stepped up as a run blocker. Look at that, smell that, feel that, touch that, do that, and you can make yourself a lot of money and have a lot more opportunity moving forward as the Ravens will. I mean, Charlie Kohler could catapult himself. Get on the field, block your ass off, do what you're supposed to do, don't play panicked, and you could be playing 30, 40, 50 snaps in January. So huge opportunity for those guys. I think if those guys can get the job done against some tough edge defenders, the Ravens go win big. And I've been hesitant to pull the trigger on that kind of blowout, but the stars are pretty aligned. And unless we see a Justin Herbert masterclass, I think the Ravens can win this one handedly.
Yeah, I'm going to go relatively similar. I'm going to go Ravens win this one 27-17. I think the defense is going to continue to step up. I do think the offense, maybe a little first half under for the offense there. If you want another prop, you can take to the bank. I'm expecting a little bit of a transition here in the post Mark Andrews era, but maybe they figure things out in as quickly as one single game, or at least in one single half. I'm expecting a bigger second half from the passing game than we'll see in the first, and I think they'll kind of get things rolling, similar to that Tampa Bay game from last year that we go back to when Andrews got hurt and Bateman got hurt, and they just had to make some adjustments on the fly. And I like this offense a lot better than that one, both schematically and talent-wise. So, yeah, I'm expecting them to come through tonight. Like I said, 27-17. I don't know if it's going to be pretty all the way through. Maybe a little bit similar to that Arizona game where you just kind of going, you put your hard hat on, you punch the clock, then you leave at 5 p.m. And you had a day of work. It's a workman-like win, and that's that.
I love it. And the one final note I'll get us out of here on, I guess, is just no more Mark Andrews.
That's that.
To me, Bateman, Aguilar, Flowers, all those guys, this is your time to press on the accelerator, expect the ball, make yourself available, be in tune with Lamar Jackson. Like, you should be smelling colors tonight. You should be seeing into the matrix tonight. This is your chance, especially Rashad Bateman. This is a nationally televised game on Sunday night.
All the PEDs that Kohler is going to be on, I think he will be smelling colors.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. I would love to see Kohler get a little suspension next year. Would love it. But Rashad Bateman, I'm going to single him out specifically. Two of my guys, Patrick Queen, I'm going to single both of them out. Patrick Queen on the defensive side of the ball hasn't been playing his best ball lately. Rashad Bateman feels like he's getting warmed up, revved up, does have a little mishap at practice. We'll knock on wood for that and hope that doesn't turn into what it did last year. But nationally televised game, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson is probably going to do 20 million plus in viewers, probably 22, 23 million minimum, I would think, if not more. This is a money-making game for Rashad Bateman. Make a play, win, run harder, run faster. Don't think, catch the ball, put your hands together, catch the damn thing, go balls to the wall. Now's your time. You have a bye week after this. I think this is his chance to prove to the NFL, to himself, to the Ravens that he is a first-round receiver, that he is someone that deserves a meaty contract, that he is someone that needs to be respected moving forward in the season. So the floor is yours, Mr. Rashad Bateman.
Okay, Mr. Bateman, time for you to step up. As it is time for everyone else to step up and time for us to step away. We are under 10 minutes to kick off here, so I will get us rolling. Thank you guys for tuning in for our little impromptu live stream here. Sorry for not getting a full preview out, but busy holiday week as it can often be, but hope everyone enjoyed the live stream on Tuesday night.
Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching us on YouTube, which you most likely are. Hit us with a like and a subscription there. Support the fellas.
Yep, exactly. And leave a comment even if you're watching this back. It helps with the algorithm, get this thing moving out to other people and other eyes, and keep growing this this business here. And what is ostensibly year one. I mean, it's technically year 5 for you and I, but as far as what we're building here, it's still very much the beginning stages. So whatever you guys can do to help, please do. And you can do that in the form of everything we've just said, plus following us on social media at Exit 52 Podcast, at Jake Luke, that is LOUQUE, at Ravens 4 Dummies, that is the number 4. You can follow the OG3 at EDITTI22 for Eric, at Barstool Banks for Brian, at Taylor Smythe 10 for Taylor. Thank you guys. We are waiting all day for Sunday night, and it is finally here. Let's have ourselves a good one.